Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Director General. I'd now like to invite the person who's actually hosting us in this state. As Mr. Limbourg said, we are in the North Rhine-Westphalia state, and the Prime Minister of that, it's a pleasure to have him here, and he's going to be giving us welcome remarks. Mr. Armin Laschet, welcome.
Dear Mrs. Gabriel, Minister Müntefering, dear Peter Limbourg, ladies and gentlemen, how nice it is that the world is once again our honored guest. Welcome to Bonn, welcome to North Rhine-Westphalia, and welcome in this beautiful former parliament room. This was the room where the German parliament worked for years, and I remember when I was a young member of the parliament, in the German parliament, this was the place of the Chancellor. There was sitting Helmut Kohl. This seat is a little bit higher than the other ones, and now I think this is a blogger. Wonderful change in this building. Welcome to North Rhine-Westphalia. Bonn, of course, is a city which was for decades capital of Germany. It's the birthplace of Ludwig van Beethoven, whose 25th anniversary we will be celebrating in 2 years' time. And welcome to Bonn, the only seat of the United Nations in Germany, where people from around the world come together and build networks of mutual support, whether at the Global Media Forum or at the COP23 UN Climate Change Conference last November. Here in Bonn, we get together with our friends and partners from Europe and across the globe to discuss future challenges and the urgent issues of today. My heartfelt thanks go to the Director General of the Deutsche Welle, Peter Limbourg, for making this conference possible for the 11th time. And I'm particularly delighted to see you here today, Mrs. Gabriel, as European Commissioner for Digital Economy and Society. You are the head, one of the most exciting departments in the European Commission. Thank you that you are here today. And the two communications from the Commission that you issued recently on the European approach to artificial intelligence and on disinformation on the internet are driving the debate. These are important and urgently needed contributions. Because, as you all know, in the digital age, we won't come far if we rely on national solutions alone. I'm extending a very warm and special welcome to the 7 reporters from Ghana. Ghana is our partner country in Africa, and we are planning to further intensify our relations in the field of the media, which is why I'm so pleased that you have accepted our invitation to attend the Global Media Forum and take part in a trip to media organizations and companies based in North Rhine-Westphalia. I hope you have an interesting and rewarding time in Germany. This year's Global Media Forum presents a number of perspectives on the issue of global inequalities. It is about how we can maintain social cohesion in societies around the globe, especially in the context of the major economic changes that are caused by the digital revolution. These changes can be felt in relatively stable industrialized countries such as Germany. We have to focus more not only on how we might reduce inequality on a global level, but also on how to prevent inequality from creating a rift within our own societies. We are united in our fight against global inequality, and that is a chance for all of us. In North Rhine-Westphalia, we have been moved by economic change and the question how to deal with it, not just recently, but for many decades. After the Second World War, the first Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Konrad Adenauer, and his Minister for the Economy, Ludwig Erhard, founded a new social order. They called it social market economy. The system which combines social rights with economic freedom has become a trademark of Germany. In the days of West Germany, it was also referred to as Rhineland capitalism, because the major economic centers such as Cologne were close to the River Rhine. At any rate, the core idea of this political and social model can be summed up as follows: the economy must serve the people, not the other way around. And in North Rhine-Westphalia, we remain attached to this principle. It guides us, for instance, as we are about to develop a comprehensive digital strategy for our state. With this digital strategy, we aim not simply to be a catalyst for innovation, more jobs, and the creation of added value in production chains. We also want to ensure that people, with all their skills and needs, their cares and desires, remain at the forefront of our thoughts. The digital revolution must not be allowed to widen social divides. On the contrary, it creates opportunities to close these gaps. One aspect of the Global Media Forum that I find particularly exciting is its focus on the contribution being made by a changing media landscape to create a free social discourse and with it more social cohesion. This is urgently required because our societies are feeling increasing pressure from a number of quarters. Firstly, the globalization process is intensifying competition between national economies in all sectors of society to such an extent that many people worry about whether they are or their children will turn out to be winners or losers of globalization. However, globalization only finds acceptance when it is explained to people, and it's up to the media in particular to play a role here. Secondly, the digital revolution acts as a catalyst for globalization, and what is more, it changes the way we go about our daily lives. Digitalization leads to individualization, and the media provide a forum that is more needed today than ever before. Thirdly, political conflict, social polarization, and the widening gap between rich and poor in many countries are driving migration, which in turn presents challenges to society. Integrating people who are looking for protection and perspective is a huge task and one to be tackled by society as a whole. Yet, at the same time, we are witnessing a creeping polarization, which is why the media have a key role to play in a society's affirmation of its own identity and in fostering understanding between different groups. We doubtless agree that media plurality and social cohesion stand in direct relation to one another, because without media diversity, there can be no free discussion. And without free discussion, we shall be unable to work out sustainable responses to the social, economic, and political challenges that we are facing. I fear, however, that we are still some way away from arriving at a common understanding of how we should be dealing with the disruptive repercussions of digitalization. By this I mean, for instance, a common understanding of the ethical and legal questions that we must answer if human intelligence is increasingly being enhanced or replaced by the intelligence of machines. Let me pose a few questions that I, and I doubtless you also, have been reflecting on, since we are all equally affected by them in an age of global digital platforms. One of these questions run as follows: how will free discussion and social cohesion be affected if people have the news they consume and the information they obtain selected for them by algorithms on Facebook, for instance? With self-referential filter bubbles, there is a risk that entire realities will get blotted out and that society will then cease to engage in a joint discussion of urgent issues. And another question: how are media organizations affected when individual players bind users ever tighter to their products? For example, if we consume personalized news via the newly designed Google News app and can even subscribe to newspapers contact via the app, then we no longer have any reason to leave the world of this app. That's exactly what Google wants, and it can also be convenient for the users. But it means that other media organizations, which have to produce and pay for the content, end up extremely reliant on Google. Or a third question: what are the repercussions for media organizations, for journalists as a professional group, and for us all as media consumers if the news is increasingly being written by intelligent software? In financial and sports reporting, robot journalism is already quite widespread. News agencies now produce local news reports generated by artificial intelligence. I have no problem with this if it results in an additional supply for news. However, I would still like to read articles written by real journalists who know my town and can apply that knowledge when assessing what is going on. All these questions and examples indicate that digitalization is creating new and unforeseen ways to disseminate and consume media content. There are huge opportunities associated with this. For instance, I can now read the current issue of the New York Times every morning, and people in every small village can read. A few years ago, this was unthinkable. At the same time, digitalization is causing a radical shift in economic power relations. And if the classical national, regional, and local media organizations fail to secure a sound economic base for themselves and assert themselves against the new players, it will have serious consequences for the choice of media that we enjoy and at the end for the democracy. Many countries around the globe view the diversity of media in Germany with envy. Strong newspapers that have long been accessible online, on smartphone and on tablet. Our private TV and radio broadcasters on the one hand and our public service broadcasters on the other, which together not only provide an extremely broad array of information, but also reliable, organize the flood of news item for us day in, day out. But even in Germany, we must defend the diversity of media channels. Public service broadcasters have to make themselves so indispensable by virtue of their high-quality journalism, that people are happy to pay the license fee that is due from every household. This is the system in Germany. And the political establishment has to ensure that public service broadcasters have a secure financial basis from which to work and are not subjected to political or governmental pressure in the content they produce. Private media organizations must be able to compete proactively in shaping the digital revolution, and they must be enabled to invest in the development of new business models. Policymakers must create the best conditions for them to achieve this. One example is a European Union project to set up a European copyright to strengthen newspaper publishers' copyright position, especially in their competition with new players in the Silicon Valley. Although the devil is in the detail, European copyright is extremely important. The work of journalists must remain well paid in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I've posed a lot of questions and I do not claim to possess all the answers. It's for us to work out these answers together. I'm delighted that you have come together in Bonn with a view to get down to the nitty-gritty of these issues. I urge you to be generous in sharing your experience while you benefit in turn from other people's perspective. And please use the opportunity to make new worldwide contacts during and after the Global Media Forum. The saying hello at the beginning was the start of this process. And after all, in today's digital world, it's easier than ever to communicate, whatever the distances involved. And on a personal note, please take inspiration from Bonn, this lovely town on the banks of the River Rhine. I'm convinced that Bonn will once again prove to be a starting point for good ideas that matter. Thank you very much for your attention.